thank you so much for being here. I'm going to ask an incredible lady to come and speak just now. And what she has done is she has been working full-time for a crisis pregnancy centre, founder, for over 20 years. And she has taken 40 Days for Life to the next level in this country. We've had 3 full-time prayer vigils in the United Kingdom for many years now, of which have saved hundreds of lives from abortion. The most successful campaigns were in Ealing in London, where 23 lives were saved about 4 or 5 years ago. These vigils have been saving lives on a daily basis through the work of the Good Counsel network. And she has been the founder of that organisation. She's been challenged by the Parliament this year. She's been like the Catholic Woman of the Year. And she literally has been instrumental in helping to save. It is estimated cross-organisationally through Good Counsel, Helpers of God's Precious Infants, and 40 Days for Life have saved about 1,000 lives over the last 5 years through prayer vigils. They're so successful, they're beginning to get banned now, which is the challenge that we're facing. But I'd like to welcome up Clare McCullough, who's going to speak to just give a summary. Clare will just give a summary of what's happening in the UK through the wonderful work that the Good Counsel is doing. Please welcome Clare. Thank you very much.
Thanks. I'm not sure how I can live up to the introduction, but I'm going to try and say things that might be helpful to you in increasing the number of turnarounds you have, because you've heard so many good stories already about what people are doing. So the situation in England at the moment is that we have abortion up to 6 months for any reason, and up to birth in case of risk to the life or health of the mother, or where there's what's considered to be a grave health problem with the baby, but we know that that is actually includes things like cleft palate, or sometimes the child having 6 fingers, or very minor disabilities. The Good Counsel Network has been running for 22 years now. During that time, we know of about 3,000 women who've kept their babies, and about 1/3 of those have come to us through the vigils that we have outside the abortion centres. For the first 10 or 15 years that we were operating, there were Saturday vigils around the UK, so people would go on a Saturday for 1 or 2 or 3 hours and pray outside the abortion centres and offer help, and occasionally there would be a turnaround. So if I go back to the early years of our centre's operation, we would have clients brought into us from the abortion clinic maybe once or twice or 3 times a year, and we thought that was fantastic. But we started to think about what we could do to improve this. A year or so after we got started, the Helpers of God's Precious Infants got started in the UK as well, and they used Monsignor Philip Riley's training methods, and they're all available online. The Helpers of God's Precious Infants have some talks of Monsignor Riley's online. So they started going, and the vigils started to bring in slightly more people. In about 2005, we had a 9-day novena of prayer outside one clinic in central London, and I know some of the sisters who are here today were involved in that vigil. So that was the first time we'd had constant prayer for 9 days outside an abortion centre. At the end of that novena, a priest in a central London church, St. Patrick's, Father Alexander Sherbrooke, said a mass in thanksgiving for the closure of the clinic. It hadn't closed at that stage, but we were having this mass said as a sign that we believed it was going to close, and in thanksgiving for that. Now, I'll come back to that in a moment. So after the 9-day novena, we became more and more interested in this idea of having more hours of prayer outside the abortion centre. Sometime after that, we started to promote an intern programme, and the intern programme got going around the time that 40 Days for Life came to London, when Robert founded it here in 2011, I think it was. So we were involved in supporting 40 Days with counselling, so we would always have a counsellor present if possible when 40 Days was running, and we would also have girls brought into us from the first 40 Days vigil in Whitfield Street in central London. And our interns started coming, and they started coming from all over the world, but mainly from European countries. Many of your countries were majorly represented on our intern program. So we had Romanians, Slovakians, Irish girls, we had people from all over Europe. And we found that when we sent the interns out to the vigils, that they started to have much better response from people if they actually really took on Monsignor Riley's approach. So we would have a picture of Our Lady, we might have a poster offering help and support and listing what support there was. We would have a help leaflet based on his leaflet that would be given to each woman going in. It was a very peaceable approach. We were offering to pray for the women. I mean, you can find what he does online, but the more closely they followed what he did, the more turnarounds we had. So suddenly we started to have a regular stream of turnarounds coming in. At the end of the first 40 days, we decided that we couldn't just walk away from that. Now we'd started having this daily presence. So we stayed on and started a regular daily vigil at Whitfield Street. The next 40 days campaign that was held at a different abortion centre, we started a daily presence there, and the one after that was started at a different centre, we started a permanent presence there. So we now have 3 daily presences at abortion centres, and eventually we had to take on paid staff to run the vigils, which has been useful to us later on for other reasons. But I would say, you know, if you come from a country where you think the money isn't there to do that, you know, all the money that we get comes from God, and he has the same money in every country in the world. So he's got all the money you need, it's just in other people's pockets, and he's quite willing to give it to you if you have faith and ask him for it. So we've got these 3 daily vigils running, and suddenly we're, instead of seeing 1 girl a year, we're seeing 100 girls a year who have turned around, and sometimes more, and sometimes less, but, you know, large numbers of women. So I remember one girl in particular during the 40 days who came to us, wanted to keep the baby, was under a lot of pressure from her boyfriend, but she continued the pregnancy, but every week she'd book a new abortion appointment, and she'd be texting me, oh, I'm going for the abortion tomorrow, and even she'd be saying, please pray for me. So we had a huge list of people praying for her, and you know, she'd go in and something would be wrong that day, she'd eaten too late or whatever. Finally she got to the last stage she could abort, just before 24 weeks. And she went to the abortion clinic with her boyfriend, who was really pressuring her to get on and get over it. So we had hundreds of people praying by now. They'd all been gripped by this story of her so often nearly aborting the baby. And when she got there, the abortion theatre had caught fire, and she wasn't able to have the abortion. So even she saw that as quite a miracle. So after the vigils had been going for some time, they became very successful. We know that in one of the clinics that we're outside, the number of girls actually having abortions dropped by about 18%, and another one about 15%. So this movement for buffer zones began. And the buffer zone movement is interesting. When I went to the first residents meeting for the buffer zones, they didn't know who I was. I just sat in on this meeting, and I listened to them all talking about these terrible graphic pictures of aborted babies that we have, and why are we there, and we hate women. And you know, I went away to my vigil leader and I said, why have you got these graphic pictures of aborted babies outside the clinic? And she said, I've never had a graphic picture of aborted baby outside that clinic, as you know. And I did know, but you know, after listening to people for 2 hours repeatedly saying this, I was totally bamboozled as to why they think this. One woman who was there was a pregnancy counsellor who had done a lot of post-abortive counselling of a lot of post-abortive women, and she said, she stood at one point and she said, you know, I counsel post-abortive women. And I thought, this is great, she's going to, you know, understand why we're there. And she said, and I think these people are terrible because they're going to traumatise these women even more after they've had the abortion. So I thought, okay, whatever we do, it can't be right. Nobody can understand what we're doing there. So the accusations levelled against us got worse and worse. You know, apparently we call women murderer. I was called into Parliament to account for what we do outside the abortion centres, and I was told there that we vandalised the car of a staff member of BPAS, that we block the pathway of women, that we assault women. You name it, we do it. But there's actually no actual evidence of any of these things except lists and lists of accusations, usually funnelled to the councils and the government by the biggest abortion provider in the country. And I was able to actually get proof from the police that we hadn't done many of those things, but that's just completely ignored. But what has happened is that we've had time and time again the opportunity to bring mothers' own testimonies to the fore during this. We've had far more publicity than we've ever had. When we're on TV, we try and say, you know, if there's any woman out there who's pregnant and needs help, come to us. We've had lots of people looking at these testimonies online of women who've had abortions or who have had our help and not gone ahead with the abortion. which were never getting in the media before. The current attempt to bring in a buffer zone in West London is now going ahead, so that would be the second one if it comes in. But the first buffer zone is being challenged not by us, but by one of the mothers that we helped some years ago, who since went back to help many other mothers to keep their babies. So I was reading some of the testimonies that this council, Richmond Council in West London, have put forward from BPAS. BPAS, during the month of, from November to December last year, they collected 323 testimonies complaining about our presence, and it's quite clear when you read the testimonies that actually, as the woman comes in the door crying, they're saying to her, "Why are you crying? Are you upset by their presence?" And they're pushing this form in front of their nose to fill in. So I've been looking through the testimonies, and although there are some accusations of things we don't do, calling women names and so on, there's many testimonies that are just saying things like this. They were standing outside and opposite the clinic, handing out flyers, and also had more posters beside them. This woman didn't take any posters, nobody spoke to her. She said, "It made me feel embarrassed, and as if going into a clinic was almost evil, as if we were taking a life." Another one from the same lot of testimonies. "The protesters were influencing our decision that we had already had a hard time going through. They made me feel like we were doing something wrong. And it made me understand that actually, you know, we don't have to be standing there with pictures of aborted babies or calling anyone murderer. Our presence there, however lovingly it's intended by us, is a wake-up call to the conscience. And actually these women who go in feeling like we're calling them these names are actually women who do have a conscience on some level that's been touched, and that's why the abortion centres hate us being there." So we plan to continue trying everything we can to be at present outside the abortion centres. You know, we plan to carry on in a loving way. We're not there to make them feel guilty. We're there to try and help them avoid the need ever to feel guilty by offering them alternatives. We've found, you know, we have to have a religious presence there. People are always telling us, just take the religious images away, this is a mistake. But the people who are saying that aren't turning around large numbers of women. 9 out of 10 women who come into our centre in a really secular culture say to us, you know, we say to them, "What made you come in here today and think about not having the abortion?" Without fail, they'll say, "I asked God for a sign, and when I got there today, someone offered me a leaflet, or I saw the poster, or whatever it is." So don't let anyone tell you to take Our Lady away or take your religion away. You know, that will make your vigil far less effective. So we wait for the outcome of the appeal, but whatever the appeal says, we will be praying somewhere as near to the clinic as we can be, offering help and continuing to witness that we believe that abortion is wrong, because we care about the women enough to do that and enough to try and wake up their conscience, even if it hurts. We don't intend to hurt, we intend to protect them from hurt, but you know, we're just there to witness to the truth. Our intern program is still running, and we welcome people from all over the world, so please do get in touch with the Good Counsel Network website. Stuart at the back there is sitting on our stall, so if anybody wants to find out more, they can speak to him. Best of luck with all that you do. God will bless you. Keep giving women hope. Don't give up. You are touching people. You're touching far more people than you are aware of, and God bless your work.